Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the BLON X Z JoJo. This is the latest collaboration by Z with BLON, creating in essence a revised BLON 05S. So they've basically taken the 05S, they've given it a different color to the shell, but the shell in everything else is basically the same. The driver is a composite diaphragm driver. I have no idea what they mean by composite. They don't mention if it's LCP, DLC, CNT or anything of the sort. The old 05S used a CNT driver, very much like the 03. They've given it a decent cable and retuned it slightly to create the JoJo. Anyway, the box is very simple. There's nothing really much to say about it. It's as basic as it can possibly get. I wish it would open. There we go. The IMs came over there. The BLON typical bag. Decent amount of tips. I mean, loads of them. We have these ones which seem to be like a narrow bore. These ones which seem to be a more wide bore style, and then these black ones which go back again to like the narrow bore. So anyway, you know, tips or what they are. They half decent, better than the ones that came in the BLON 03 actually. Although they do look similar, but they seem better. And you know, decent cable, which I'll show to you in a second. Very basic. 32 ohm impedance. They rated at 106 decibels of sensitivity, and the price is $49. Okay, so anyway, that's out of the way there. Here's the JoJo. Okay, nice cable. You know, a bold color. I have to say this purple violet. I don't know really what to call this color, but it's a bold color. The cable is half decent, 3.5 as I mentioned. For the sake of comparison, here is the 05S. Okay, right side. Let's grab the right side here as well. And as you can see, they are identical. Nothing different. Same shell. Everything is exactly the same. Position of the holes for the vents. Everything is exactly the same. Slightly different color in terms of the filter, but otherwise everything is the same. Okay, anyway, fit is decent. I'm not gonna say that the fit isn't bad, sorry, because it isn't. It's actually decent, although these ear hooks are a little bit on the tough side, so I'm actually thinking of removing them, because they don't let, at least in my ears, the JoJo sit in the ideal position. I actually have to take the ear hook out, which obviously then deters, or does away with the whole purpose of it. But anyway, the fit is okay, because I tried with a different cable, and the fit is okay if you don't have a cable with the ear hook. It's got a nice weight to it. It feels sturdy enough, and isolates pretty decent once the proper tip is selected. I like using on the blondes. I like using these 07s like I like I usually use quite often. Also, the lecture type tips also work very nicely on the blondes. All of them, 03s, 05s, JoJo. And I also like using these blue tips, which are some tips I got from BGVP. Okay, these tips also work very nicely. Anyway, let's get into what we want to know, which is sound and how does it sound and all of that. I've basically brought out what was to be expected. Obviously, the original 03 over here, the purple version. Okay, the latest version of my own retune of the 03, which I call it the Acros 3. Okay, and then of course the Z300 by a collaboration from HBB. These two use the CNT driver, as does the 05S. This one uses this composite driver. I don't know what it is. And then the Z300 uses a silicone driver, which is supposedly a new driver by BLON. As for this one as well, I don't know if it's a new driver, if it isn't. What I do know is that it does graph different to that one slightly, and it does sound more like my modified BLON 03. And when we get to the graphs, you'll understand what I'm saying. Sound. You put on the JoJo, and straight away what jumps to you is the bass line. The bass line is very nice. It's got a thick bass, but it's got decent quality. It's pretty, it's got good resolution. It's clean. It's plenty detailed. Doesn't linger. The bass is nice. The bass is nicely executed, even if perhaps a little bit overdone in terms of the quantity. But it's nice. It's a nice bass. The transition into the mids is nice and smooth. It's got a very relaxed pina. Nothing aggressive, no peaks. In essence, and when you see the graphs in a second, you'll understand what they've basically done is. And also the case of the Z300 is they've taken the BLON 03, okay, and they've just tidied up the bass a little bit, because the BLON 03 does have good bass, contrary to what some people might think. I don't agree. The BLON 03 has very good bass, and it has very good mids. Now, what happens with the BLON 03 is that there are different series of this driver, and I've got these two here for a special reason, because these two drivers belong to different series. This driver in this BLON 03, which is an older 03, has got more extension, okay. Even in its standard format, it had more extension than this one, okay. And then when I modified it, the extension I now have, and the final graph that I now have, is basically a JoJo, okay. And you'll see when I show you. This one has got less extension up top, very much like the Z300 style, okay. But on the other hand as well, this particular purple one, which I got last year in 2022, the mids are a little bit more ups and downs as compared to this particular 03 over here. So what that means ultimately is this one sounds a little bit more, can sound a little bit more shouty with specific instruments and with specific vocals, okay. And obviously when you take this and then you compare it to this or to that, you notice big differences. You notice that these two, be it the JoJo or the Z300, are way more polished products, but it's not in the bass where it's a huge improvement and so on and so forth, like was very much the calling card or the attraction for the JoJo. No, the bass in terms of this one and this one is very similar, maybe just a little bit extra mid-bass punch here, but it's minimal differences. You'll see what I mean. It's more of an audible thing than actually something that you can see on the graph. What makes the bass here stand out a little bit more and seem to be more prominent is that the fact that then the mids, the upper mids and the highs are done exquisitively. They done really, really well. It's clean, it's detailed, no sibilances, no aggressiveness, no harshness, no unnecessarily high end, nothing. Very nice there, okay? All right. So, bass, perfect. Mids are good. Male and female vocals for the most part. I didn't find anything that was out of my liking. Everything was perfect. Instrument as well, pretty decent. The timbre and tonality was a little bit on the thicker side because of that bass and because of that slightly less energetic mids and upper mids. But again, fine. Maybe in that aspect or in that detail there, I would give the timbre and tonality, maybe I would give a slight edge in certain instances to the original 03. Okay, either one of the versions, I would give it to this one. But that would be one thing, because then the rest, this one here is as capable and even more capable, because you can increase the volume without it getting aggressive and then becoming fatiguing. So soundstage is pretty decent. It's decently wide, not the widest soundstage, but decently wide. It has got a good sense of atmosphere, more than, for example, the Z300. In terms of imaging, decent. I mean, for the price, it's pretty decent. Nothing, that I was considering to be a standout. No, it was decent. Detail resolution as well, pretty decent. And detail retrieval, pretty decent. And resolution as well, pretty decent. So overall, considering the price of well, $50. You can't really complain with the technicalities that the JoJo is offering. Compared to the Z300, soundstage a little bit more cozy there, a little bit larger, yeah, but ever so slightly. Imaging very much equal, detail retrieval as well, slightly more here than over there because of that extra extension that you have up top. Resolution just slightly more here as well than on the Z300. So I would say that it's not really in the bass where I saw differences between the two of them. It wasn't really in the mids, it was just in the upper mids and treble and the extra little detail I got out of this one where I saw the differences between the two of them. I know that some of the reviews mentioned the fact that this had way more bass than the Z300 and this and that. Well, with this unit that I have here, that's not what I perceived. The bass sounded basically the same. What I did perceive and what I did notice was there was a little bit more detail retrieval here, a little bit more twinklies and sparklies, a sound set which was just marginally bigger. Although, look, the reality is this: either one of them, the technicalities are adequate for the price. There are actually IEMs that will have more specialized technicalities, better technicalities than either one of them, but then they fail to have perhaps other equally important factors as being as musical, because in that aspect, be it the JoJo or the Z300, they are both very musical. Okay, compared to the original 03, it's a more both of them are more polished products. There's no way around it. That's the reality. If you have an original 03 and you immediately hear the JoJo or the Z300, you notice that you are listening to a product which has been more polished, because it does away with those peaks at 2 point something and at 5K that this one has, which can be problematic. You could somehow try and control that using a phone tip. But I've used the foam tips and I didn't really see such a huge difference that would justify using it anyway. As compared to my modified one, my modified one is basically this or this, and I did this mod last year, early last year. When I said that this was the version 3 and I've changed it slightly, the only thing that I've changed slightly is the damper value. I used to use a tantrum oxygen filter, okay, and I'm now using a 500 grade and a 200 grade. So I've increased the damper volume over there, and what that does is just smooth it out slightly more, the response after the pin again, and basically it's equal to these two now. All right, basically equal. In terms of sound, very minimal difference. I mean, very, very minimal difference. And also, it happens because the bass here, although graphing very similar to these two, it does seem just a little bit less, not as intense. So by having just that smidge less intense bass, and then the mids and upper mids being just that little smidge more open, it sounds like it's got a little extra detail here and there, but the differences honestly are so minor that I'm not even gonna try and listen to this song, listen to that, because look, you might put it in your ear and you won't even notice the difference. So this is me after countless hours of playing around with it and doing this, trying that tip, putting this one, putting that. So take that for just a piece of information that I'm giving, and not for something that the majority will probably even notice, all right? Because let's face it, the 03 is not the easiest IEM to fit. So if you're not able to fit it like I am, maybe you won't even perceive what I'm saying. So overall, this is the to sum it up, the 03 modified, the way I've done it here, is basically a JoJo and a Z300, more similar to the JoJo than the Z300 because it has got the same type of mids, upper mids and treble as the JoJo, so more detail up top than the Z300. And then the bass, again, it's one or two songs where you see that difference, all right? That's basically it. I mean, JoJo, okay, $50. If you guys want, I can compare it to other IEMs. Is it something that I think is worthwhile getting if you have a Z300? I don't think there is enough in it to justify the price difference, honestly, because the difference that exists between these two is minor, and nothing that you can just take an EQ and just give it a little bit more on that one, and you'll have the same amount of twinklies and sparkles that this one has. So honestly, I don't think it's a worthwhile a worthwhile purchase compared to the original. Yes, it is better. So if you want to, let me put it to you this way: if you want to have the experience of BLON, of its successful models, let's put it that way, the 03, definitely, and you don't have any other BLON, then this is something that you could consider. Okay, you could definitely consider this one, just for the sake of again leaving you with this extra bit of information. Compared to the original 05S, the difference that you notice between the two of them is, if the 05S was a less bassy BLON 03 and a better executed mids, upper mids and treble, compared to the JoJo, it's noticeable that it's got less bass because it's been reduced, and the mids, upper mids and treble, although a little bit more detailed at lower volume, then they don't scale as well. They never, well, I'm not going to say they never reach the harshness is a strong word, but the over energetic levels that the 03 reach. It's more tamed, more controlled, but that they are not as capable at higher volumes as the ones in the JoJo are. Okay. Anyway, guys, quickly show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up. All right. Take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the BLON Z Reviews JoJo. I've got all the graphs there, the BLON graphs of the 03, my modified 03, the two versions that I made, the latest one and the one before that, and I've also got the graph of the Z300. So I've basically got all the graphs there. Okay, so let me just quickly start taking away some graphs here so that we can start seeing things and breaking things down a little bit more. So okay, let me take this one out, and then let me take this one out. Let me see if I'm not making a mistake, because I've got a whole bunch of them open here. Okay, this one out. This one out. Okay, this is the graph that you see now of the JoJo. Nice meaty bass, definitely some bleed into the mids and but nothing which is a deal breaker. Very smooth pinna gain. I mean, we're talking a rise of pinna gain of 69 to 75, so 60 dBs of gain into the mids, and 69 to around 10 dBs into the bass. So definitely a prominent emphasis on the bass, although it doesn't sound as overpowering as you might even think. This is my opinion. The mids, upper mids and treble, very nice. A couple of related peak and extension past 10k. So really nothing to be said there. This is the one I'm going to put now, the Z300 by HBB. A little bit less bass, okay. You can pick up on it occasionally here and there, and I guess maybe some people that got the JoJo maybe got JoJos with a little bit more bass, and that's where that whole story of the difference in the bass is noticeable, and the JoJo is more bass thick and so on and so forth. I'm willing to accept that, but where you do see differences here, this extension past 10k, and that is noticeable. That is definitely noticeable, especially with cymbals and stuff like that, and you will notice it. There's a little bit of a difference here as well in the upper mids, but nothing which is terrible or trust me when I say that these two sound very similar. They sound very similar, so much so that I honestly don't think there's if you've got a Z300, why would you get the JoJo? Honestly, I don't think it just doesn't make sense. Now, where you do see differences of these two is obviously when you take something like the original BLON, okay, which I'm going to put now here, and when you put on the original BLON, this is the original BLON, that purple one that I showed you, okay, and as you can see straight away, okay, at least compared with my JoJo and my Z300, that purple blonde has got the same bass. So that whole thing of, oh, the bass is being mega emphasized and this, sorry, I don't agree. It doesn't have the extension. This is down to the fact of that being different series of the R3s, okay? But what you do notice here is this peak here at just over 2K, a peak here at 5, and these two peaks, although they don't seem crazy here, they can show themselves, especially when you crank the volume, and they can make the treble not be as clean, as polished, as smooth sounding. It can get a little bit over energetic, over enthusiastic at times, and ultimately when you're listening to music for a long time, with a louder volume, which I always tell you guys to be careful with that, it can become fatiguing. All right, so this has been in the JoJo. What they've done is they've basically trimmed it down. If I compare it with the Z300, same situation, more noticeable because there's a smidge less bass, more noticeable this polishing up, this smoothing out of the frequency response. Okay, so let's just take it back again. Yeah, the blonde. As I said, I modified the blonde, the 03, and I've got two versions of that. I've got they both were done last year. One was using a tantrum filter, the tantrum oxygen filter, which is the graph that I'm going to be putting up now. Okay, and as you can see, I've basically smoothed out that there. I've got all that extension that I was talking about, and I also dropped slightly the mid bass. You might not think that this here is that noticeable, but it is noticeable, trust me. Okay, and then I improved upon that, and I changed the tantrum filter. I put a 500 grade and a 200 grade like I mentioned, and I got this one here. Where is it exactly? So let me just put, and I got this one. Let me take out the stock blonde for a second. And when you compare the two versions that I have is I've just smoothed out those peaks that I had, which you can't really even consider them peaks, just made it smoother, more plateaued. Okay, and the bass, I'm guessing it's because of the two dampers. It just naturally increased. I didn't do anything. I didn't touch anything. Now, if I take that version, okay, and I'm going to just do away with that first one, which is irrelevant now for our talk. So let me just actually erase it. Okay, if I take now this version of the 03 modified by me, and I compare it now with, for example, now the Z300, definitely more detailed, noticeable, a little bit more here as well in the upper mids and going into treble. Obviously you have to modify it to get this if you got a blonde, and if you don't have any skills to modify it, then that's it. But as you can see, it's a Z300, and when I even compare it with the JoJo, because that's the theme of our review here today, it's basically a JoJo. There's a little extra sub bass there, a little extra here, but it's a JoJo. It's a JoJo. Okay, it's a JoJo. Little bit less mid bass into mids here. What ultimately comes out is my 03 modified has got just a little extra more detail. Okay, on some songs it's more noticeable, but a little bit extra, but the difference is minimal. And the bass, because it's also just slightly less, which is again on some songs noticeable, it just makes the sound just a little bit extra cleaner, if that's the best word to use here. Okay, we're talking maybe a difference between my one and the JoJo of about 5%. Once again, as I've said, if you can modify it, maybe you can create yourself a JoJo, spending very little money. If you don't know how to modify it, then just get yourself a JoJo, and that's it. If you don't have the blonde and you want some of the blonde magic, I guess the option would be get a JoJo. Or if you already got a Z300, then stay with the Z300. All right. But as you can see, the differences here are minimal. They are minimal. Trust me, minimal. It's going to be very much how you are able to fit into your ear that's going to dictate as well if you pick up on these differences, what style of music you listen to. There is truthfully not much in it. All right. Anyway, guys, this has been my take here on the BLON JoJo. As I said, if you guys want me to compare it with other IEMs, please let me know. I'll do that. There's plenty of other IEMs in this $50 price bracket. Just let me know, and I'll do my best to make that happen. All right. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me. Take care now. Bye bye.